All right, we are live. Sorry for the delay. There were some technical issues. My internet was being funky. For those of you who are new, hi, I'm Kelsey. I make comics, especially The Legend of Jamie Roberts, which is a LGBTQ pirate adventure story, which you can read at thelegendofjamieroberts.com. I'm here today to share some of the tips and tricks that I have learned in Clip Studio Paint, the drawing program that I primarily use to draw my comics, especially The Legend of Jamie Roberts. I also use it to draw up commissions, to just draw up whatever it is that I want to draw up. It's really just my preferred tool of choice. I switched from Photoshop to Clip Studio Paint way back in, I want to say it was 2016. It's been a while. To be fair, though, I'm always learning new things on this program. So by no means is my knowledge comprehensive. I am just going to share what it is that I have learned so far. So I hope that you find these useful. All right. With that said, I apologize in advance if the technical issues get a little bit too much. I have a glass of water beside me. In a minute, I will be getting up to get my tea. Right now, it's still steeping. So at some point, I will be displaying the BRB fetching tea so that I can get my tea. And if you would like to find out more about the other stuff that I do, here's my link tree. There's also a link in the description on YouTube. Without further ado, there we go. Let's add that there. Okay. Excuse me. For folks who want to follow along or join in, great. For folks who are watching this on the replay, and yes, this will be available as a replay after the live stream wraps up. Once the replay posts, timestamps will go up later for handy reference. Tips and tricks with pro skater Kelsey. Great, you reminded me that I was going to open up this episode with, on today's episode of Dragon Ball Kelsey, and I completely forgot. Hi, Jessica. I'm happy to see you here. Hoping that Ben will make it because he had a lot of questions about Clip Studio Paint and some of the tips and tricks that I know. Let's get a canvas up real quick. So Control N for new. And you can actually change the paper color right here. We're going to make this white for now. Depending on the tutorial, I may start a new canvas and change the canvas color, but we shall see. But you can set the paper color here in this little box. We're just going to have it as white for the purposes of this. Resolution 300. This is dots per inch, but you can also customize it here. Didn't realize it could go as high as 1200 DPI. That's good to know for later. And you can set the unit of measurement. You can do inches, you can do pixels, points, weird. I usually just go with pixels. That's my default. This is a new feature that Clip Studio Paint has where you can, if you click it, it pops up with this little window. Time-lapse recordings are saved with the canvas, making the file size larger than usual. You can change this setting from the file menu to time-lapse to record time-lapse. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm not going to be recording the canvas because live stream, so I'm not too worried about that. We'll just start with this square 2000 by 2000 canvas for the purposes of this. There's paper layer. Here's layer one. I'm going to call this one. What do I want to call? Ooh. We're going to call it letter effect. One of the first things I'm going to teach you is how to make handwriting letters in Clip Studio Paint. This is really handy for people who want to do the sound effects in comics. So the easiest way to do that is have this layer over here. And then you go up into this right-hand column under layer property. There's effect, and then there's like a circle, a mesh, and 2 squares layered on top of each other. We're going to hit that circle, and it's going to give us a border effect. So for border effect, there's the option for edge and watercolor edge. For the purposes of this, we're going to go with just edge, which is just the plain old circle. You can determine the thickness of edges if you want to. For this, we're going to change the edge color to black. And then we are going to have the inside color that the edge surrounds. We're going to change the color with all the way the color canvas. I'm going to click on this white square. All right. We're going to make this brush a little bit larger. With I can make that be better. Black border. Can be read on any color. Here it is on the white. We're going to make a new layer, Control-Shift-New, or Control-Shift-N, brings up a new layer over top of the layer that is highlighted. We're going to call this one Color BG. And if you want to color the entire background, make sure that you get to the Fill tool and then refer only to Editing Layer. Oop. White text with a black border can be read on any color. And just to prove this point, we're going to change up the color of the canvas. And it is still legible. Look at this. It's science put into effect. Look at it. So that's the easiest way to do handwritten text. So we're going to go back into that letter effect layer. Now, the reason that it can do this is because technically this is a vector layer. So if you want to be able to play around with it further, you will need to right-click the layer and select rasterize, which is kind of in the middle of the window. We're not going to rasterize it quite yet because let's say, oh, dang, I didn't want white text. I wanted a different colored text. So you just go into these layer options here. And along this bar, the middle bar, there's these options next to the little lock. There's a little lock over top of a mesh. This is lock transparent pixels. You click that and you, for the purposes of this, we'll have the white background back. So anyway, you've locked the transparent pixels in that letter layer. Now let's say we want to make the text bright neon green. So you just select the color that you want to change it to. And we're going to do we're going to do pen tool. We're going to make this one larger. And there we go. Look at this science. It's marvelous. Because what this does is it locks in the transparent pixels. If you don't have the transparent pixels locked in, it does this, which is not what we want. We want those pixels locked so that then you can do this. These. playing around with like a rainbow effect here. There we go. Now let's say you wanted to erase something while this layer is still in effect. We're going to unlock the transparent pixels and we're going to have it back to being manipulated. You can, in fact, erase stuff and it still makes a border around things. That can make some really cool effects. Whenever you're done, you just right-click it and then you select rasterize, and there you go. You can not rasterize it if you choose to. If there's still a lot of things that you want to play around with, that is an option. But this is also a really handy way to do some like visual shortcuts whenever you're designing costumes. I will show you in just a moment. Yeah, it's pretty neat. Wait until you see what you can do to make drawing up costumes a little bit easier. Ben, you need to get on this stream, my dude. My goodness. I'll leave a timestamp as soon as I can. So let us start a new layer. And we're going to turn that letter effect layer off. Let's call this one Costume Tricks. This layer is called Costume Tricks. So with that new layer, the effects are turned off. We're going to leave those effects off for a little bit. We'll do a black line just to, it's my default. It's just black lines. Let's change that brush width back to 20 though. For what I want to show you, I'm going to draw a super simple boot. Okay. So here are some of the tricks that I want to show you. I was going to make this a little bit larger, but we can just zoom in here. All right. Costume tricks. Let's well, I was going to start up a new layer, but let's say that you drew a thing and you're like, you know that visual effects layer that I was just playing around with? Could we do that with something already drawn? And technically you can. Edge color black. And there we go. You can do that. Or let's say you want to make the edge color bright red. You can do that. And you can have those effects too, if you wanted. For the purposes of this layer, though, we're going to turn the border effect off because here's how you can make super easy buttons. Start a new layer, have that border effect in place, turn the edge color to black, center to white. Again, if you want to make this center part white, you go over to the color palette to the left and you select white. Then you get your pen tool, get it to whatever size you want your buttons to be, and there you go. You just made super easy grommets. So then I'm going to rasterize this and merge it down. And for shoelaces, we can do the same darned thing, but I want to make the shoelaces blue because why not? So we're going to have the edge color be black and the center color be blue. There we go. Look at how easy this is. Boom. We just made super easy shoelaces. My goodness. Look at this. Much magic. And then you can rasterize it. And you can merge it down if you want to. But let's say, oh no, I didn't mean to make them blue. I meant to make those shoelaces red. So we're just going to Control Shift. We're going to Control Z so that we can undo. And the effect layer is back into effect. Lock those transparent pixels. Select the color that you want your shoelaces to be. And there we go. Just made them orange. Why not? And there we go. Super easy shoelaces. You can leave them on a separate layer if you want to. But there you go. Super easy shoelaces. Now, let's say you want to leave this boot in your working file, but you want to make some new layers to draw on top of. But if you're not careful, you could have way too many layers going on at once. So here's something that I learned. You go over to your layers. You select however many layers that you want. We're going to select these two for the purposes of this. And we are going to right-click. Okay, I thought it was in the right-click menu. You can do New Layer Folder, or you can do Control D. And that groups those layers into a folder. And you can name the folder whatever you want. We're going to call this one Boot. And then you hit this little arrow caret, and it shrinks it. This makes navigating around your working file so much easier. And then there's not 5 million layers. There's just folders. So that's really handy. And you can move the layer around however you need to. So let's say we have this letter effect and right now the boot is layered on top of the lettering effect. But we can move the entire folder down. And boom, now it's under the letter effect layer. So yes, you can move an entire folder around. Makes it so much easier. All right. Now, we got that boot. Let's say you're working with something, but you need a mirrored effect going on. Clip Studio Paint can let you do symmetry stuff. Oh. That said, it can do symmetry, but the Symmetry tool is not perfectly straight. Before I go any further, I'm going to address some questions in the comments. Is there a penalty per layer? I messed with Photoshop long ago on a Power Mac, and every layer slowed it, made it quite laggy. Clip Studio does not use as much power as Photoshop does. So I've not encountered a slowdown penalty per se. That said, Photoshop can let you save files as a Photoshop file, not just a Clip Studio Paint file. Whenever you convert a Clip Studio Paint file to a Photoshop file, it does have that penalty per layer in place. It also means that Photoshop does not accommodate folder groupings like what I just showed. So whenever you're playing with something in Photoshop, after fiddling with it in Clip Studio Paint, some folders may get lost in translation. Excuse me for 1 second. I see a spider. All right, little booger, come on. And come on, you little shit. Ah! And now I need a piece of paper. Hold on one moment. Technical difficulties. Alrighty. This little mischievous madam was running around on my wall just a second ago. So excuse me while I take her outside and get some tea. And then I will get into symmetry stuff. So be right back, y'all. All right. Thank you, Cup, for your service. Oh, I'm going to get you on camera. You're the resident cryptid. Easy Brie Brie. She was sitting on her perch wondering what I was up to. Yeah. She turned 15 this month. Oh, 15-year-old little old lady. She already got the gray hairs. Boop. Okay. Spider tea, drinks whatever a spider tea tastes. Yep. Let's see. This was Photoshop 5.5, I think. Very, very old now. I wouldn't use Photoshop now. Yeah, honestly, after using Clip Studio Paint, there's just so much that Clip Studio Paint can do that Photoshop wishes it could do. Though there are some things that Photoshop can do that Clip Studio cannot, like mesh transformations. For folks who don't know what I'm talking about, Photoshop allowed for this thing where you could transform an object by putting a mesh over it and then fiddling around with points to transform a particular thing. Clip Studio Paint has something similar, but it's not as robust as Photoshop's tool was. Might still be. I have not worked in the newest edition of Photoshop, so I don't know. And yes, Kitty. Yeah. She doesn't like to be on camera super often, but she was up on her little perch wondering what I was up to, so I had to show her off. Alrighty. Excuse me. Speaking of tea. So, let's say that you want to work with something symmetrical. But the symmetry tool is not perfectly straight. Especially if you want to do something where the symmetry is like down the middle, vertical, as it were. So what I would do previously was I would hit the letter U, and that takes me to this menu. the figure tool. And then I would do rectangle, draw a rectangle line, and then I would hit the letter U 2 more times, and that takes me to create ruler. One of the rulers is symmetrical ruler. And then I would have to zoom in, and then I would have to drag the tool along this line and then let it go, and boom, it forms a symmetrical line. And the symmetry tool is its own layer. That's how I've done it in the past. I'm going to turn that layer off. I'm going to turn this layer off. Symmetry Tool. We're going to do this live. Let's try using a guide off of the canvas to draw this. So, first of all, you see these rulers that are up along here? The way that you get those rulers visible is you go to Window, and in Window, there's, let's see. Oh, no, it's not Window, it's View. That's right. In View, in the middle of the menu, there's Ruler. You can also hit Control plus R or Control R. Turn that off. It turns the ruler off. Go back to View, hit Ruler, and the ruler pops back in place. Now, the ruler, it looks like the ruler works with, okay. It works with the, what's the word? The unit of measurement that you set whenever you start in a new canvas. So because I'm working in pixels, these measurements are in pixels. That's why the numbers are like stupidly high. So anyway, we get the rulers ready. You hover your mouse over the ruler tool, click and drag. And that forms a guide. And the guide just made a new layer. So using that guide, get that symmetrical ruler. Then, just to make sure, boom. There you go. You can use the guide to help you make the symmetry tool. It's not going to be like super perfect, but it is better than just eyeballing it. And that symmetry tool is going to make drawing anything symmetrical way easier. Okay, for the purposes of this, we're going to move these guides up to here-ish, and we're going to group all these layers together. To do that again, you highlight the layers that you want, Control-G, put them in a folder, Symmetry Tools, and it shrinks all those layers down. Look at that. We're going to Control-Shift-N to make a new layer. Symmetry Test, and black pencil so that you can see what's going on. The mechanical pencil is a little too smooth for my liking, so lighter pencil. And there we go. Symmetry in action. All right, I wanted to take a sec to see if there were any new comments. Get some tea. There we go. That's how you can use symmetry. Now, you can group folders within a folder. And I will show you how to do that. You just select the folder and the layer that you want to group. Control-G. And boom. and boom, shrinks it all down. But let's say that you want to get into that subfolder there. So you just hit that down caret to show what's in that other folder, and then down caret for that subfolder, and boom, it shows you everything. And there's not a whole lot of penalty in regards to speed of the program. So like you can put those subfolders stacked together and it won't really affect the speed too much. At least I have not noticed this. Symmetrical. Yes, symmetrical. All right, now that we've got all of that grouped together, we are going to turn that off. And by hitting that little eyeball button, that turns off not just the layer that I was drawing in, but all of the layers associated with that folder. Super handy whenever you're working with multiple things. So there's the boot. There's the symmetry. What else can I show you? Well, how about I show you how to make materials for custom brushes. We're going to call this layer custom brush. All right, now we're going to get that pen tool. Now I've discovered that if you want the line quality for this brush tip to work really well, you need your brush tip to be thick, preferably like a 50 or higher. For the purposes of this, I'm going to go with 60. Okay. I'm going to bring up another image for reference. And then when I bring up this image for reference, I'll show you something else that Clip Studio Paint can do. And it's awesome, and it's so handy, and I love it. We're going to go into here, and we're going to bring this image up. Now, up along this upper bar, here's the file that was just opened, and next to it is the file that we were just working in. For this, we're going to click this file we just brought up, and we're going to drag it to the side over here. Boom. And it does this effect. This makes referencing something on the side so much easier. All right. Now, when it comes to making material for a brush, fun fact, you can have multiple brush tips on one tool. For this, let's make it easy. We're going to, actually, for this, let's make it 100. And whenever you want to register this material, what you do is you go to File, oh no, it's under Edit. It's under the Edit menu. You go to Edit, Register Material, Image, and it brings up this menu. We're going to call this material name Swirl. And under the material image, there's menus for material settings for brush, and you can select it as a paper texture or a brush tip shape. We're going to use this brush tip shape. For this, I don't usually check off the other paste operations. I don't usually mess with those too much. You can specify the order in layer palette, but I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. But location to save material, which is on the right-hand side of this window. We're going to do all material. We're going to have a color pattern. Pattern other. Okay. So we got that. We've registered this material. We're going to make a new layer. We're going to turn this layer off. Brush test. Okay. So to make a new brush, you go to Decoration. You can also go there by 1, 2, 3, hitting the B as in boy button 3 times. So for this swirl background, there's a particular effect that I want it to have. So I'm going to look for a brush that's similar to what it is that I want it to do. Not any of those. Possibly that one. Stand by while I figure out which brush I want it to be most similar to. Probably not those. Okay, there we go. We're going to use this brush as the basis. So you highlight the brush that you want to reference, and then currently selected subtool, or you can right click and hit duplicate. We're going to call this one swirl. Oop. Okay, now that we've got the swirl brush, let's customize that brush tip. So we go into tool property and we hit the wrench, and that brings up this menu over here. So we go under brush shape, brush tip, and we select the brush tip that's currently active and delete, because we're going to replace it with the swirl. To replace a brush tip, this little menu will say click here and add tip shape. So we're going to click that, and it brings up this little menu, select brush tip shape. Created material, because there's a little menu, type, and you can, if it makes it easier, you can also type certain words. I know which one I want though. We're going to go swirl. There we go. Okay. You can do that. To play around with some of the effects, you can play around with direction of applying. Right now it's applying vertically. Let's try horizontally. All right, cool. So we got that going on. Brush density, you can play around with the density of the brush. That makes it look like a graying effect almost, if you wanted to do that. We're going to bring that back up to 100 though. Stroke lets you play around with the stroke of a thing. You can change the gap between these. And playing around with the gap can create effects like this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. But we're not going to do any of those, not for this brush that I want it to be. If you select just that single dot, which is fixed, you can change the spacing in between the swirls by playing around with this bar here. Boom. Yep. And then you can do continuous spray, which looks like this. If you wanted to do that. I don't want to do that. Correct velocity input. Right now it's checked. Let's see what happens when it's not checked. Oop. When it's checked. Okay. There's not too much of a difference that I've noticed. If you're not sure about a particular tool, there's more information in the bottom right box. For correct velocity input, it says this setting changes how the velocity is calculated when used as an input for tool dynamics. When turned on, the change caused by the speed of the pen will be consistent across different devices. When turned off, velocity will be calculated as in previous versions. Okay, so it's more about the brush tip then. You can also do a ribbon effect, which does this. See how it changed that? Whoop. There you go. Now you can change the repeat method of the ribbon as well, or you can turn ribboning off. And with the repeat method, you can have it, right now it's at repeat. There's also reverse. There's also do not repeat. There's also random. And then there's also one time only. Even when you try to like make it brush strokes, it only just makes one. Or you can have one random cycle. For this, I really liked that ribbon effect, repeated. It's a really nice way to make waves like this one. I really like that effect, so I think I'm going to keep that as is and have that be one of the swirls. You can also play around with texture if you want to, but I'm not going to do that. Boom. And there we go. We have made one custom brush. Let's group that. Swirl brush. All right, I'm going to take a sec to look at comments. Okay. Another sip of tea. I'm probably going to do about 15 more minutes of tutorials, and then I'm going to wrap it up because I got some other stuff that I got to do today. If you would like to check out some of the other stuff that I do, here is my link tree. I will have this on display for a little while. Alrighty. So let's say, hey, I really liked that brush, but I also want to do a thing like this Mr. Dino and Friends brush where you draw it and it comes up with different dinosaurs every time. Or, hey, I want to do a custom brush, but every stroke I want it to look a little different. So here's what you do. We're going to turn that layer off. We're going to call this layer lettering. Okay. For this, I'm actually going to do an effect layer. We're going to have the edge color black, but the center color stays black. So G pen. And this is why I brought up this castle facade as a reference, because I want to draw some of these letters that I made up. There we go. Okay. Now, let's say you don't want to register this entire canvas as part of the new brush. You can, in fact, bring up the marquee tool and select what it is that you want to register as a brush material. Edit, register material, image, and boom, there you go. Yeah, we're going to call this one Chorus Lettering 1. There's a lot of letters that we can work with. Use for brush tip shape, all material, color pattern, pattern, other. There we go. Oop. Bring up another layer, lettering 2. Now let's say I want to leave this up as a reference, but I don't want it to be like super visible like this. You can, in fact, mess with the transparency of an entire layer. To do that, you go into the right-hand column over here. You go to Layer, and this little window that says Normal, that's your blending mode. You can change it to multiply or whatever it is that you need. Right now, we're going to leave it on Normal. But over here, this little bar is the opacity of the layer. Let's change this to 25. Ta-da! And it does that. So we're going to leave that there as a reference for scaling reasons. Because I want to make sure that everything scales properly. Turn that layer off. And we're registering this material again. Yep, letter porous lettering 2. Try to keep the naming convention consistent for the purposes of when we get to making this brush. It'll make it way easier to find these images later. Use for brush tip shape. All materials. Color pattern. Pattern other. Oop. Okay. Gonna make another layer again. Make that 25 transparency for scaling reference. Oop. Now I'm just making sure that I'm keeping track of what letters I've already drawn for the purposes of this thing. All right. Okay. Move that over a bit. There we go. Okay. Turn that layer off. Register material, image, porous lettering 3. Use for brush tip shape. Color pattern, pattern, other, boom, ding. Okay. So that's, okay. Okay. We're going to do one more layer. I forgot to name that one. There we go. Lettering 4. Just to make sure that all the scaling is consistent as it can be. Okay. Okay. Boop. And we are going to register this one more time. Register material, image, porous lettering 4. Use for brush tip shape. All materials, color pattern, pattern, other. Done. Okay. So we got all that. Let's group these layers together. Lettering brush. Very important. Create a new layer. Turn that folder off. Now let's go into those custom brushes and get what it is we're looking for. So for this one, there was a skull brush that I did not too long ago that I think would make a good basis for this. As soon as I find out where I put the thing. It's not this one. This is a different skull brush. Hatch line would be the next closest, I think. So if I can't find what I'm looking for, I'll just use that hatch line one. Where did I put that sucker? Well, there's swirl. Well, the first swirl that we just made. Aha, skull 2. That's what I was looking for. Okay. I feasibly could use one of the brushes that I bought off of the starfish face because she set it up very similarly to what I did with skull 2, but hers is mildly different. But for the purposes of this, we're just going to duplicate skull 2, duplicate subtool, chorus lettering. Let's name her number 1, just to be on the safe side. Boop. And we're going to hit that wrench, and we're going to change the brush tip shape. Brush tip. Delete that. Yes. And we're going to add multiple brush tips for this one. There it is, the chorus lettering. Boop. We're going to add this. And created material might be the easiest way to get to these. Chorus lettering 2. Add another one. Created material. Lettering 3. And you notice how the line is changing as I add new material to it. Created material, lettering 4. There we go. We got 4 different brush tips. So we can do, let's see. Stroke. Yeah, we're not going to mess with the gap very much. Random. Ribbon effect. And there we go. We just did that. Look at this. We have all of that text made into one handy brush. I just did that backwards just to see what it would look like, and it's upside down. Whoop. And there we go. We just made that. For the remainder, I will answer any questions that you may have. So we're just going to save this canvas. Okay. Hey, how have you been? Oh my gosh, there's actually been a lot that's changed. Tim, I don't know if you were here for the previous streams, but I was working with Neverending. I am now no longer part of the team. So now I have more time to do tutorial streams, make the Legend of Jamie Roberts, fulfill Kickstarter rewards, all of that stuff. Like, there's now more time for all of that. So I'm really looking forward to it. This first week has already been pretty great as far as catching up on stuff. That said, update for you Kickstarter backers out there who backed The Legend of Jamie Roberts, Volume 1. The PDF may be a little slower to put together, so I may not have it completely done by the 31st, which is Monday. I may not have it done by Monday, but it should be done before the end of next week. I'm usually busy around this time. I get that. Not everybody can tune in for a live stream Saturdays at 1 p.m. I'll look into possibly streaming on other days throughout the week, just so y'all can see what it is that I'm working on. I'm still picking out a date, so like, shout it out in the comments when you like watching stuff on YouTube. YouTube right now is my preferred streaming platform of choice. I don't really have Twitch set up. The only reason that I streamed on Twitch during the month of April was because StreamYard, the service that I'm using right now, let me simultaneously stream on YouTube and Twitch. Outside of that, still figuring out Twitch. Okay. If you got any other questions, or if you have like suggestions on when you would like to see me live stream on other days throughout the week, shout out in the comments. But definitely if you have questions, let me know. I know I showed a lot today on how to do a bunch of stuff in Clip Studio Paint. This is not the complete list of tips and tricks that I have. So I will be doing another live stream at some point showing you more stuff of what I've learned in Clip Studio Paint. So just keep checking back. This stream will post archived on my YouTube channel. When it does, I will go back and add timestamps as I can so that you can easily reference particular steps. I hope Neverending is doing okay. They just released version 2.0, which is a complete overhaul of its screens. It looks pretty awesome, but there may or may not still be bugs. Just report them as you see them. The team will get to them as quick as they can. They're doing fairly well. It's just I needed to not work with Neverending to work on my own personal stuff. That was why I left. That's all. That said, I did announce a lot of the other stuff that I will be working on now that I'm not working at Neverending. You can watch that in my previous live stream, which is also archived on YouTube. Links below. That one was the channel update video, if you wanted to see all of the stuff that I'm working on. Because I not only talk about it, I show you what I'm working on. Okay. I'm thinking if there's any other questions or concerns that I want to address while I'm here. Oh, I'm glad. I know a lot of creators are hurting right now. Yeah, not gonna lie, it's been a lot. I'm glad to see that there are some conventions that are slowly opening back up, but many of them are still doing virtual stuff. That said, I'm going to reach out to the organizers at Space, which is a convention down in Columbus, because they're doing a virtual convention. I'm going to reach out to them and see about doing a panel with them on their YouTube. Also, check the interview streams. Yes, I have a playlist of all of the interviews that I did as part of Less Than Secret, a cryptid anthology. You can check out that playlist on my YouTube channel. Links below. Just click the profile. There we go. All of the interviews are there, including the launch party. So there you go. If you wanted to hear me talk with a bunch of comics creators, there's your playlist. I'll put together other playlists as I get around to it. I've heard about Space from your boy Carlos. Yep, he's pretty cool. I know two Carloses, so I think you're talking about the Carlos who also runs Youngstown Indie Creator Expo. The interviews were amazing. Thank you. I did my best. And I did my best to keep the energy up as the streams went on. Oh, is Los Carlos from Yo Ice. The Carlos that is, or the Los that is in the comments section right now is actually based in DC. That the Los is who introduced me to, well, we met at Intervention Con, but he introduced me to a bunch of shows. He was my table buddy at Small Press Expo, and he and I have talked about other shows too. I am blanking on their names right now, and I don't know why, but shout them out in the comments. But yeah, I know 2 Carloses because I like to make things as confusing as possible for everybody that I know. Intervention con, like intervention. Yeah. It was a play on words. I don't think intervention con is still a thing. I haven't heard any news from it for a while. At least it wasn't put in play. I have a soft spot in my heart for put in play. But I did an entire video about put in play already. Ow. All right, we are at the 1 hour mark. I'll give y'all another minute. If you have any other questions for me, post them in the comments. I'm going to be wrapping this up here shortly. Let me just X out the screen really quick. Oop, there we go. Okay. Give y'all another minute if you got any other questions. I met the owner of AwesomeCon at G1 Supercard in New York City. He is hard on his wrestling. That guy had better produce one heck of an event for all the smack he talks. There's just something about the DC area that, especially with the AwesomeCon peeps, like wrestling is their bread and butter. And like that's how I've learned a lot of like wrestling stuff and who particular people are. Shout out to the Los for introducing me to that, because unless you have somebody like the Los introducing you to professional wrestling, it's a lot like the worst parts of trying to get into the Dragon Ball Z fandom. Oh, apparently the Los knows who you're talking about there, Tim. The comics world is surprisingly small. All right. Well, if you have the inclination to, and if you liked what it was that I showed you in Clip Studio Paint, feel free to leave me a tip. Ko-fi.com/Kelsey D. Crawford. Absolutely no pressure to do that, though. I know that things are rough for everybody, so there's no pressure at all. But if you would like to follow me on social media or on my blogs, or better yet, read my webcomic, The Legend of Jamie Roberts, you can find links to all of those things at linktree/Kelsey D. There's also links in the description. Check that out. Like I said, this live stream will archive on YouTube, also on my website later on. I will add timestamps to the best of my ability to the particular lessons and breakdowns that I did throughout this video, so that you have a handy dandy reference if you ever need to circle back to this live stream and you're like, how the heck do you draw shoelaces? I will timestamp that part. If you're like, I don't know how to make a custom brush with multiple brush tips, I will leave a timestamp for that one. I think you would have liked Chikara. You're going to need to tell me all about that on Discord, because I don't know who that is. I'm going to assume that's a wrestling person because we were just talking about that. Okay, I'm going to log off because I need to get some lunch before I get to any other work today. But thank you all so much for watching. Check out all of my other stuff. Links in the description. Thank you, everybody in the live stream chat, for joining me. Thank you all for watching. You are awesome.